Exposed. How an unexpected maid's 5 bitter bowls transformed a cold CEO into a loving partner. Amanda stepped into the high-rise office, a realm of polished marble and pristine glass that reminded her of the skyscrapers back home, their shadows spilling over the bustling streets of Chicago. With her heart weighted by the distance from her children, her fingers lightly brushed against the mahogany desk as she began her thorough routine. Every swipe of the cloth felt like a reminder of her purpose. She was here to provide for them. Yet, another part of her couldn't shake off the deep-seated fear that they lived lives far removed from hers, swirling in a world of privilege and indifference. Tom, the cold CEO who occupied this immaculate space, was barely acknowledged the moment she entered. To him, Amanda was just a fleeting shadow, a simple maid employed to keep his empire spotless. As she dusted the office, she felt that familiar tension rise, a gnawing discomfort that spiraled into an anxious knot in her stomach. Here she was, balancing on the edges of their two disparate worlds, yet her own reality clung to her like a heavy cloak. The bowl of her family's traditional bitter stew, prepared with such love and countless sacrifices, was in the corner of her mind, ready to be shared that evening with her kids over video calls. She glanced at it, illustrative of their history, their struggles, her resilience, but she hesitated. Would they understand? Could she ever bridge the gap between their lives? Before she could lose herself further in thought, disaster struck. In a moment of distraction, her elbow nudged the bowl off the desk, and it shattered on the floor, a colorful splatter marking the harsh lines of debonair corporate decorum. "What have you done?" Tom's voice cut through her racing mind, his eyes narrowing in contempt. Dread pooled in her stomach.
I'm sorry.
It was an accident. Her voice trembled. She hastily knelt to pick up the chunks of ceramic, churning with a mixture of shame and desperation. That stew was, she struggled to find her voice. It was a recipe for my grandmother. It has kept my family strong through tough times. Tom paused, surprise flickering across his face. "It's just mess," he scoffed, but there was an edge of something deeper lurking beneath his hard exterior. Amanda inhaled sharply, feeling her own emotions collide: humility, anger, and a longing for understanding. As he stood there, she mustered the courage to confront him. "You may find my food unworthy, but it represents resilience from a world you don't see. It feeds my children and gives them hope." Her words almost dripped with emotion, more than this desk of yours ever could. Tom blinked, his frozen facade cracking just slightly. Her raw honesty took him off guard. His heart raced as he tried to regain his composure, yet he couldn't shake her words from his mind. Before the tension could settle too deeply, he surprised himself by asking, "Can you help me? I need to impress a partner with a meal." She laughed unexpectedly, the sound rising like a bubble from deep within. "You? Cooking?" The ridiculousness of the thought almost uplifted the dread. The connection sparked a flicker of humanity, one he hadn't felt in years. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue." But the stakes quickly escalated. As they discussed ingredients, Amanda sensed the looming shadow of a corporate merger that threatened her job and the livelihood of many like her. Fear gripped her. Could she risk confronting Tom again? What would it mean for her family? Now he was looking at her, the icy businessman revealing a hint of vulnerability, and as she felt the air thicken with their unspoken connection, it struck her. She held a piece of power in this moment. Yet Tom was at a crossroads. Behind his professional facade, Amanda pondered whether he was capable of bending the hard edges of his ambition for the human cost looming ever closer, a battle between profit and compassion. The thrill of connection was entwined with danger. Anything could happen next. Could love truly bridge the chasm? Would he choose the people who mattered, or would he remain ensnared in the grip of cold efficiency? The tension coiled tightly, each heartbeat echoing with uncertainty that left her hanging, waiting for his next move. As the day unfolded, Amanda felt a strange blend of anticipation and dread. The notion of cooking for Tom was surreal. It ignited sparks of nervous energy within her. What kind of dishes would a CEO appreciate? She fought against the chill of doubt creeping in, battling the gnawing sense that she was out of her depth. Yet, there was something fiercely empowering in this situation. Cooking had always been an expression of herself, an art form polished over years, shaped by family gatherings and the necessity of survival. Just as she was finding empowerment in her identity and her craft, she wondered, could she channel that same passion to stir something in Tom? Preparing the meal meant more than merely following a recipe. It was a chance to reveal her world through each vibrant ingredient. As she envisioned the flavors, she could weave together the warmth of spices, the soothing aroma of simmering broth. She felt the pulse of her heritage guiding her hands. Maybe her food could become a bridge between their worlds, a way for Tom to taste the resilience that had shaped her life. She started planning the menu carefully, choosing dishes that told stories of her family's endurance. A few hours later, when Tom returned from meetings, the tension in the air hummed like an electric current. She had commandeered the small office kitchenette, spices lined up like soldiers ready for battle. It felt oddly intimate, this collaboration between them, breaking away the cold facades they had each adopted. Tom, unexpectedly hovering nearby, curiosity evident as she sautéed the onions, filled the space with a rich, delicious scent. "Are you really sure about this?" He looked skeptical, but there was a softening of his eyes. Amanda took a deep breath. This was the moment to truly expose herself, to let the rich flavors reveal the depth of her experience. Cooking isn't just about following rules, Tom. It's personal. It tells stories. And I want you to come to understand my world, to see the beauty in struggle, she challenged gently. He stepped closer, his expression shifting from distant scrutiny to intrigued curiosity. "What do you mean?" "The resilience found in each ingredient. These lentils, for instance, they're not just food. They are a symbol of strength, of meals shared during hard times. You're all about efficiency, aren't you? Yet this is messy, unpredictable, and beautiful." As her words flowed, she saw a flicker of recognition in his features, as though he was starting to comprehend the richness behind the mundane. She felt a rush of urgency to sustain this moment, to engage him further in the emotional journey hidden within each aromatic layer. Just then, the intercom buzzed his assistant, reminding him of an impending call that could shift the tide of the merger. Instantly, the atmosphere thickened with tension. Amanda felt the warmth of their budding connection collide violently with the reality of his corporate world. Her heart pounded. Would he retreat back into that cold fortress of efficiency, or would he recognize the importance of vulnerability and empathy she had laid bare?
Tom, wait.
"If you're about to face a decision that could impact lives," the words tumbled out, raw and fervent. "You must remember that behind every number, there are people like me trying to make ends meet." He hesitated, hands clenched. The moment hung in the air, palpable and charged, as time stretched like taffy, caught between two worlds. Would he choose personal connection over profit-driven decisions? In this pivotal instant, Amanda realized that her own path forward hinged on his response's choice would shape not only his future, but hers as well. The clock ticked loudly in the silence, filled with breaths they didn't dare release. This was no longer just a culinary challenge. It was a test of their shared humanity. Yet, just as she sensed a breakthrough, the reality of the impending phone call loomed larger. An opportunity was about to unfold, an opportunity that could lead to either her professional ruin or an unexpected transformation in their relationship. Would he step forward into the warmth she was offering, or would he retreat into the shadows of corporate ambitions? The answer whispered in the space between them, but for now, it remained tantalizingly out of reach. For a brief moment, the air between Amanda and Tom crackled with potential, like static electricity before a storm. She could see the wheels turning in his head, a mix of calculation and hesitation. Every second felt like an eternity, and the tension coiled tighter around them. Then, the dam broke. Tom's shoulders relaxed, and an understanding spark ignited in his gaze. "You're right," he admitted, his voice lower, almost reluctant. "I can't just treat this like any old transaction." The dormant weight of his corporate responsibilities seemed to shift ever so slightly, and Amanda's heart raced with hope. It was a door cracked open, enough for her warmth to seep through. "You have to remember," she continued, leaning in slightly, "the choices you make don't just affect numbers on a balance sheet. They ripple outward." The intercom buzzed again, violently startling them both. Tom took a step back, and the palpable connection they had forged began to fray around the edges. With a faint grimace, he grabbed a nearby towel and wiped his hands. I have to take this," he murmured, clearly conflicted. "I understand," she replied, realizing that the moment had been fleeting, fragile. She stepped away, feeling the warmth dissipate as Tom retreated behind business armor he had learned to wear so well. The cooking was less of a ritual now and more of a desperate attempt to capture a moment that felt almost within reach. With him on the phone, Amanda returned to her pots and pans with a renewed sense of purpose. If Tom was to see the essence of her world, she had to reflect it back through her culinary artistry even more vividly. Each chop, each stir was infused with her resolve. She was fighting for something greater than just a meal. She needed to sow the seeds of empathy in the sterile soil of his corporate life. Minutes passed, and Amanda lost herself in the rhythm of cooking. The vivid colors of peppers and greens burst forth under her hands, while the rhythmic bubbling of the pots provided a soothing backdrop to the storm in her chest. She was crafting stories with flavors, each spice a word, each ingredient a character. But there was an undercurrent of anxiety. How much of herself could she reveal before it overwhelmed him? Eventually, the phone call ended, and Tom stepped closer again, a hint of something uncertain in his demeanor. Was it difficult?" she interjected, feeling bold. "Did it matter?" He hesitated again, eyes flickering over the aromatic spread she had conjured. "It was complicated, as it always is." He paused. "I pushed for a fair evaluation," but his voice trailed off, weighed down by unspoken burdens. Amanda seized the moment. "Sometimes, fairness is messy, Tom. Just like cooking. You must let yourself taste it all, the sweet, the bitter, the delicious chaos. The choices you make are part of a bigger system, just as this meal is a tapestry of richness." Tom's expression shifted. There was a dawning understanding behind his furrowed brow. Whether it was realization, discomfort, or curiosity, she couldn't tell, but Amanda felt the tension in his stance soften just a fraction. "Do you really think that this could help?" he asked, sounding more vulnerable than she had ever heard him. "It's a start. You're not just building a business, you're weaving lives together. And maybe, just maybe, you can allow that humanity into your decisions." With her heart pounding, she moved in closer, her determination surging. But as he opened his mouth, the intercom buzzed a final time, a harbinger of impending complications. Tom began, frustration flickering across his face as he stepped back yet again. For a heartbeat, it seemed they were lost in a limbo between connection and obligation. In that split second, Amanda realized this was not just about cooking a meal anymore. It was about engaging in a dance of vulnerability and power, a negotiation of two vastly different worlds. Just as she prepared to find the courage to speak again, Tom's phone buzzed anew, and his expression hardened with urgency. "I have to take this," he said sharply, retreating. As she turned back to her simmering pots, a swirl of emotion cascaded within her, a mix of determination and trepidation. Could her strength hold? Would she manage to present her world to him despite the barriers rising once again? With each successive moment, Amanda felt the stakes rising. And as the phone call pulled Tom further into his corporate reality, she realized she had only begun to uncover the depths of her own potential to influence change. The next step weighed on her. Shrouded in uncertainty, a challenge loomed just beyond the next corner of their complex relationship. What would it take to truly break through his corporate facade? And how much would she uncover about herself in the process? Amanda's hands moved instinctively as she prepped for dinner, but her mind ventured deeper, swirling in the atmosphere of anticipation that lingered in the air. With each slice and toss of ingredients, she wrestled with her resolve. What if she offered more than just a meal? What if she gave him a glimpse of the world he had buried under mountains of spreadsheets and quarterly reports? The hum of the kitchen, usually a comforting companion, morphed into an echo of her thoughts. Focusing on the task at hand, she crafted a dish that symbolized unity: a sweet and spicy stir-fry, vibrant with the many hues of life, a blend of flavors that didn't just complement each other, but created something unique. As she stirred, her internal dialogue crescendoed with hope and frustration. Maybe he LLC, she whispered to herself, that compassion can guide decisions, that warmth can be a powerful influence in the ruthless world of business. But doubt crept in, gnawing at her confidence. What if he only saw her as a distraction? A temporary escape from his heavy responsibilities? The sizzle of vegetables in the pan broke her reverie, momentarily grounding her. She took a deep breath and shifted her focus. Tonight's meal wasn't mere sustenance, it was a statement. As meat seared and vegetables softened, she began to see how the elements mirrored her own journey, each ingredient adding depth, complexity, and ultimately, connection. Tom emerged from another conversation, his expression less hardened this time. The flicker of uncertainty in his eyes mirrored her own. Sorry, business stuff. He looked at the cooking pots with hesitant interest. What's on the menu? Stir fry. I thought we could try something different, she replied, her heart racing, aware that this was not just about food. It was about laying the groundwork for the conversations she yearned to have with him. The complexity of cooking reminded her of the intricacies of communication. Both required a delicate touch. As they stood side by side in the kitchen, she felt the tension ebb. Each moment of silence between them became fertile ground for possibilities, allowing her to probe deeper. Have you ever thought about how what we create says something about who we are? Ingredients don't just blend, they tell a story, much like our choices. Tom stirred, echoing her attention with his silence, his brow slightly furrowed in contemplation. I guess, in business, the choices are often so calculated. The stakes are high, and mistakes can have a domino effect. And what if we allowed ourselves not just to calculate but to feel?
To connect?
Imagine how different your decisions could be if you let humanity seep in a little. Her tone was firm, carrying hints of sympathy and longing. He glanced at her, eyes narrowing as if evaluating the legitimacy of her words. She could see the gears in his mind struggling to turn in a new direction. With every flick of the spatula and shake of the pan, she sensed a tension building, a reciprocal push-pull that left her breathless. Why are you pushing me? He finally asked, frustration lacing his tone. The vulnerability he had shown moments earlier vanishing. Amanda felt the heat rise, not from the stove, but from her own mounting emotions. Because I believe you can be better. Not just for your company, but for yourself. If you allow your heart to guide your mind, imagine what you could achieve. His gaze locked onto hers, and she felt an unmistakable shift, a glimmer of recognition within him that hinted at something unspoken, something he had suppressed long ago. It was a vulnerable moment, where the walls between corporate machinery and human decency began to crack. Tom's expression shifted from resistance to contemplation, a thoughtful crease forming in his forehead. But what if it goes wrong? What if I fail? Then it will be a lesson learned. We learn from our failures. Just as I learn from each meal I prepare, she replied, the urgency of their moment propelling her forward with newfound determination. As she poured the stir-fry onto elegant plates, a mutual understanding began weaving between them. It felt fragile yet potent, the foundation for deeper exploration of not just his barriers, but her own. In that instant, she realized that she, too, was unearthing a hidden strength, a voice that had long been silenced by insecurity. To transform had always required courage, and now she was ready to embrace it, all while pulling Tom closer to the edge of his own. But as they sat down to eat, the question loomed larger than ever. Would he be able to navigate his own transformation? And could she handle what that revelation might mean for her own development? The darkness of uncertainty enveloped the evening. Would he choose to step across the threshold, or would the bright flavors fade into the background of his corporate world? Amanda's heart thundered in her chest as she watched Tom take his first bite of the stir-fry. The heat of their earlier exchange lingered in the air, and she could sense the electricity that had built between them. His features momentarily softened, eyes widening with surprise and perhaps a tinge of appreciation. "This is actually great," he said, a hint of incredulity coloring his tone. She smiled, but beneath that smile lay a tempest of emotions. She had opened a door, but would he step through? Food often has a way of reminding us of simpler connections, she ventured, aware of how her words hung between them as heavily as the aroma in the kitchen. "It brings people together in unexpected ways." His brow furrowed as he chewed, a mixture of skepticism and curiosity etched across his face. "You think that can happen in business? Like right here in this office?" There was a challenge in his voice that ignited something fierce within her. "Why not?" Amanda leaned in, willing to embrace this moment. "What if you allowed yourself to feel beyond the numbers? What would that look like?" It was a question that hovered, pulsating with potential. He hesitated, looking down at the plate in front of him. It wasn't just food anymore. It was a symbol of everything they had been skirting around: feelings, aspirations, and the daunting prospect of vulnerability. "Honestly, sometimes I think this is all just a game, one that I'm losing." Her heart ached for him. "But if you're losing, how do you plan to change the rules?" Tom took a deep breath, grounding himself in the reality she was urging him to embrace. "Maybe I don't know how. I've always played it safe, calculated every risk since I took over. People expect that from me. And what do you expect from yourself?" It was a raw inquiry, devoid of the niceties that often coded their conversations. Here, in the warmth of her kitchen, she saw a different side of him, a man weighed down by tremendous expectations, both self-imposed and external. He looked up, shock rippling through him, as if she had dared him to expose a truth he had long buried. I want to be the one who innovates, who disrupts the status quo. But there's comfort in knowing what to expect." His resolve cracked, revealing a fear Amanda recognized from her own past. "Comfort is often a prison, Tom," she replied, her tone fierce yet tender. "You have to decide whether you want to remain confined or explore what's possible beyond." His gaze bore into hers, searching for resolve, for conviction that matched the weight of his uncertainties. "And if I choose to explore? What if I make mistakes?" The best leaders don't avoid mistakes. They learn from them. Every error is simply a lesson waiting to shape who you are becoming. Much like learning to cook, I didn't get the stir-fry perfect the first time. But I tried, adjusted, and kept going. Her honesty hung in the air, vibrating with a sense of possibility. Suddenly, Tom's expression shifted, as if clouds parted to reveal a flicker of understanding. "So you're saying that you're okay with making failures part of the process?" "Absolutely," she affirmed, exuding a confidence that shielded her doubts like armor. "And I'm committed to helping you find that freedom, even if it feels daunting to shift the trajectory you've set." It was then that she realized she wasn't just fighting for his transformation. It was a reflection of her own. As he contemplated, the weight of the moment settled around them, and Amanda envisioned the possibilities ahead, herself not just as a maid navigating the complexities of Tom's cold world, but as an architect of change. "Let us create something different together," she suggested softly, a tentative hope threading through her voice. "Let us risk vulnerability and authenticity. What's the worst that could happen?" He wasn't ready to answer that. Insecurity played out across his features, yet Amanda could see a shift. As the meal wound down, Tom made the first move, leaning forward in a manner that suggested he was contemplating more than just dinner. "I guess I could consider changing how I lead." In that moment, Amanda felt a spark of shared courage ignite between them, a fusion of hopes and aspirations. They were on the brink of a transformative journey, but the question loomed: would their combined vulnerability allow them to confront the hidden fears that had long governed their lives? As laughter echoed faintly from the distant room where corporate banter usually reigned, Amanda pondered how far they would be willing to go together. Would this newfound connection become both their reckoning and their redemption? Amanda stirred the remnants of their meal, the clinking of the spoon against the bowl echoing her swirling thoughts. She fought against her own doubts, grappling with what today's exchange had opened within her. It was a risky venture, this partnership she was carving with Tom, but the spark she sensed offered a flicker of hope amidst uncertainty. As she began to clean up, she couldn't shake the notion that she had unlocked something in him. The embers of a latent ambition smoldered beneath Tom's steely exterior, and Amanda felt an unexpected kinship in that pursuit of genuine connection. She was reminded of her own journey. Wasn't she, too, wrestling with the confines of her life? The truths they both faced became intertwined, the challenge of moving from the safety of routine into the chaos of potential. Let us create something different together. Those words echoed in her mind, not just as a commitment to Tom, but also a commitment to herself. This was not merely about nurturing his growth. It was an invitation for her own evolution. Yet, how could she encourage him to embrace vulnerability without exposing her own fears? The next day at the office became a litmus test of her conviction. The usual chatter surrounding corporate strategy and quarterly reports pierced through her focus. Amanda sat up in her cubicle, determined to engage with Tom on a new level. As he entered, she noticed how the air shifted, his posture slightly more open, his gaze less guarded. "Ready for your big ideas?" she asked lightly, testing the waters. He chuckled, but the trace of tension remained. More like, "I'm ready for some guidance on shaking things up." His bravado was a facade, one Amanda recognized well. Tom was walking a tightrope, balancing between the expected and the unexpected. She leaned back in her chair, letting the silence hang for a moment. What would happen if you let go of the need to control every outcome? Could you explore what feels right rather than what is safe? His nervous chuckle had an edge of caution. "It sounds great, but it's a risk. What if the initiative fails? What will people say? Do you think those opinions matter more than your vision?" Every innovator faces backlash. It's part of the process. Her voice retained calmness, but inwardly, she felt the weight of her own challenge. She doubted but pressed forward, emboldened by her resolve. Tom's shoulders seemed to drop slightly, as if her words granted him permission. "What if we brainstorm a less conventional idea for the next project presentation? Something that highlights authentic collaboration?" Encouraged by his willingness, Amanda considered the possibilities. Yes. How about a team-building workshop centered around creativity, where everyone brings something personal to the table? Not just reports, but artwork, stories, things that represent who they are. It will encourage vulnerability across the board. Tom nodded, embracing the intrigue behind her suggestion. Yet questions flickered across his face, revealing a lingering doubt. And what if it flops? What if it grinds productivity to a halt? Then you're learning. Remember, mistakes are stepping stones. Amanda felt strong conviction. She was challenging not just him, but also herself to step outside her comfort zones. He took a moment, then his expression shifted, a spark ignited in his gaze. "I suppose I've been so caught up planning the strategies, I forgot about the people involved. Maybe that authenticity can inspire more than I expected." Amanda recognized his growth, layered under layers of hesitation. But as they mapped out their ambitious plan, an unbidden doubt crept into her consciousness. She was pushing him to be vulnerable. Yet what about her? Was she truly ready to fully embrace the potential of their partnership? As the conversation deepened, the comfort of exploration surged, mingling with anxiety. The stakes were rising, and with every step forward, shadows of the past whispered caution. But beneath those whispers, something new was emerging, an understanding that perhaps Tom's struggles were catalysts for her own personal growth. When their session concluded, Amanda felt a tempest of emotions. She had sparked a revelation in him, but what would that mean for her? In that moment, as Tom exited the conference room, a question loomed large within her mind. Was she prepared to face her own hidden fears, even as she helped him tackle his? The daunting prospect of melding their journeys into one pulsated with potential, but uncertainty lingered. What if she could not find the strength she needed? What would that say about her commitment to change? As the office rhythm resumed around her, Amanda felt the balance shift. She was no longer just the maid within this corporate world. She was an integral player. But with each small victory, would she risk the vulnerabilities that could define her path forward? Amanda arrived at the office the next day, her heart thudding with a mixture of anticipation and dread. The prospect of their shared workshop hung over her like a storm cloud, heavy with both possibility and uncertainty. She clutched her notebook, the pages filled with sketched ideas, but beneath it all, self-doubt whispered sabotage. What if it flopped? What if she pushed too hard? Even though Tom had excitedly embraced the concept, she sensed the weight of expectation pressing upon her. She was not just a vessel for his transformation. She was riding the tide of her own growth, facing the gnawing fear that delving deeper into personal connection could unravel their professional lives. When Tom appeared, he greeted her with a bright smile, the initial tension slipping from his demeanor. "So, where do we start?" he asked, enthusiasm igniting his eyes. Amanda paused, her pulse quickening. "Let us outline the goals for our workshop. We'll want to clarify what collaboration means for everyone." He leaned in, scribbling notes furiously. "I want them to feel comfortable sharing, like what they bring to the table is valued." Amanda felt a flicker of satisfaction, his enthusiasm infectious. But alongside that satisfaction came fear. She was initiating vulnerability into a realm where it had been absent for far too long. We should be ready for resistance. Not everyone likes to step into the emotional. Tom's smile faded momentarily as her words settled.
Right.
And what if we create an environment that expects it? Could it set the tone for openness? Exactly, Amanda nodded, emboldened by her articulations. We need to create playfulness, to assure them that it's safe to show their true selves. Remember, the key is to model vulnerability ourselves. Her heart raced as she pondered whether she was prepared to lead by example. Did she truly have the courage to expose her own insecurities amid the sharp scrutiny of colleagues? "We can begin with icebreakers that emphasize storytelling," Amanda suggested, her mind weaving through the possibilities. Sharing personal anecdotes can foster connection right from the get-go. Tom's brows knitted together. "But what if my story isn't too compelling? What if people tune out?" "You can't measure value like that. It's not about being the best storyteller, it's about authenticity. Your story is yours, and no one can replicate that," Amanda said, her convictions strengthening. Each time she spoke, she pushed herself a little more toward the edge of vulnerability, taking Tom along with her. As they continued brainstorming, Amanda sensed a shift in the air. This was no longer merely a task of revamping corporate culture. They were teetering on the brink of a personal revolution. Yet, each idea they sketched left Amanda questioning her own hidden fears and aspirations, the very fabric of her identity coming under scrutiny. "Okay, so what if we finish the session with an art activity, something that shows how we view collaboration visually?" Tom's enthusiasm had returned, a contrast to the earlier doubts. "I like that." Amanda smiled, but the enthusiasm felt tempered by an internal struggle. Challenging her own comfort zone loomed like a shadow. As lunchtime approached, Amanda felt the tension building within her. She had pushed Tom towards authentic expression, yet every suggestion she made carried traces of her own hidden insecurities. Would she stand firm and share more than professional ambitions when the moment called for it? The clock ticked down with every passing second, each tick a reminder of the vulnerability looming like a spectral presence over their endeavor. "Tom," she said, the words tumbling out with startling fervor, "what if we share our personal struggles too? What if we both open up at the workshop?" His gaze locked onto hers, the realization settling between them. "You mean mutual vulnerability?"
Exactly.
Her breath caught in her throat as the weight of the idea settled in. "If we expect openness from others, perhaps we should lead the way." Tom's lips curled into an understanding smile, yet Amanda noticed a flicker of frustration beneath that calm. "You're asking me to expose myself, Amanda. That a big ask. Trust me, I get it. Amanda's voice wavered. It terrifies me too, but maybe this could redefine not just how we work, but who we are as well. As their gazes held, a silent pact formed, each of them standing before the precipice of transformation. Amanda felt nerves coil within her, but something equally potent unfolded and awakening. Would she surrender to the fear of exposure, or would she discover strength in revealing her truth? At that moment, as they plotted the course of the workshop, the stakes were laid bare, each choice crafted with a precarious blend of hope and fear. The question lingered in her mind. Was she, Amanda, prepared to redefine what it meant to be vulnerable? That question hung in the air as a new wave of challenges loomed on the horizon, a confrontation with her own shadows, testing the very limits of her resolve and authenticity. The hours ticked away until the workshop loomed, each second amplifying Amanda's apprehension. Her pulse quickened as thoughts and theories merged into a single, daunting reality. The presentation was not merely a professional engagement. It was a revelation, a potential unveiling of her true self. In the dimly lit conference room, as participants trickled in, Amanda felt the familiar weight of self-doubt. She adjusted the flip chart, jotting down essential topics while glancing at the attendees who exchanged polite small talk. Despite the exterior calmness, a storm brewed inside her as she prepared to step beyond the preconceived boundaries of her corporate role. She could hear her thoughts echoing in the silence. What if they questioned her authority? What if the session devolved into chaos? Tom arrived, his presence a mix of encouragement and anxiety that mirrored her own. "You ready?" he asked, his voice steady but laced with a hint of uncertainty. "Not really," she responded, her honesty cutting through the tension. "What if we fail to connect? What if?" He interrupted gently. "Focus on what we can achieve. Remember the pact about vulnerability? It's not about being perfect, it's about being real." His words hung in the air, a grounding mantra to push her toward the edge of her fear. With a deep breath, Amanda took a step forward, launching into the introduction. As she spoke, she spotlighted the importance of authenticity and emotional connection. Flashes of doubt flickered in her mind, but she silenced them, drowning out the noise by anchoring herself in the participants' faces. Each nod from the audience bolstered her courage. As the icebreaker activity began, Amanda's heart raced at the thought of unveiling her own story. Though she had led others toward openness, the backdrop of her own experiences lay dormant, ready to emerge. Would the act of sharing her journey strengthen their collective trust or expose deep-seated vulnerabilities? Participants shared anecdotes. Some were humorous, others poignant, each piece an incremental reveal of their true selves. When it came to Amanda's turn, she hesitated, aware of the weight her unresolved fears carried. The glance at Tom sent a cascade of reassurance through her. "I'll share something personal," she decided, her voice quiet but firm. "In my early career, I was terrified of failure. I worked tirelessly, thinking success would somehow shield me from being judged." She paused, feeling the collective gaze of the room. "But in that pursuit, I lost touch with who I was. It's in vulnerability that I found my greatest strength." As she spoke, she felt a ripple of energy washing over her, both liberating and terrifying. There, in that conference room, she was no longer just Amanda the employee, but Amanda the human. They moved through the workshop seamlessly, implementing her ideas of tactile connection, storytelling, and art. As participants opened up, sharing their struggles and triumphs, a palpable shift resonated, a transformation not just in the room, but within her as well. And then, as the session drew to a close, Amanda felt the unyielding weight reappear. They were heading toward the final activity, a visual representation of collaboration, but her internal landscape was churning. Was she ready for the final reveal? The uncharted territory of sharing not just experiences, but hopes and fears with those who had now become strangers, with deeper emotional ties? As they gathered materials for the art project, she remembered the pact she'd made with Tom to be mutually vulnerable. They had intended to end the session with a collective melting of defenses, but now, she faced a formidable decision: Should she dig deeper into her own vulnerabilities, or protect what is left of her shield? Tom caught her eye and nodded knowingly. The silent exchange spoke volumes, and Amanda realized it was the perfect moment to confront her own shadows. The group began to create their pieces, laughter mingling with the sounds of pencils and paint, but all Amanda could focus on was the cacophony of her racing thoughts. Would she fully immerse herself, exposing her insecurities? With that question coursing through her mind, she felt at once empowered and paralyzed. There was no backing down now. Introspection was not a luxury, but a necessity. The moment of truth was at hand, a precarious bridge between personal growth and professional honor. Could she step off that ledge and embrace the vulnerability that awaited her? The air thickened with urgency as she wrestled with her decision, fully aware that each choice could lead her toward either profound authenticity or retreat. And as the clock ticked closer to the conclusion of the workshop, Amanda prepared herself for the leap into the unknown, questioning what awaited her on the other side. Would this act of courage transform the very fabric of her professional identity? The answer was dangling just out of reach, simmering in the unspoken tension of the room as she readied herself to confront her own trepidation. The pieces of cardboard and paper scattered across the tables served more than mere canvas. They became Amanda's launch pad into a realm of vulnerability she had long shunned. As she stood there, supplies in hand, her gaze swept over the creative chaos developing before her. Laughter and spirited exchanges marked the room, but her heartbeat pulsed a different rhythm, one of trepidation, each beat raising an urgent question: what part of herself was she willing to divulge? Taking a deep breath, she remembered Tom's words, the unyielding support in his eyes. Vulnerability was their pact, and it resonated like a drum in the hollow of her chest. Could sharing her inner landscape foster strength, not just for her, but for those who looked to her for guidance? Guiding her hand to create, Amanda channeled her thoughts into colors and shapes. She started with a simple structure, a heart, but filled with cracks and fractures. Each crack represented a failure, a misstep in her journey, moments she'd once clung to desperately. Her fingers trembled as she contemplated the muscle it took to expose such raw realities. Would they judge her or connect with her vulnerabilities? The air hummed as participants continued their own creations, building stories with colors reflecting their emotional landscapes. A sense of camaraderie swelled within Amanda. In their artistic expressions lay windows to their souls, equally bruised and brave. Yet, she still felt submerged in a quicksand of indecision, her own story remaining a tightly guarded secret. Tom remained vigilant beside her, his project taking shape, a mosaic of vibrant tiles signifying resilience. With each piece he adhered, Amanda felt a flicker of inspiration light up within her, though it danced precariously above her fears. As she watched him work, she realized this was no longer merely about art. The very act of creation demanded honesty, and she fumed internally, questioning what held her back. The thought reverberated. What if revealing her deeper self was what they all needed, even if she faltered in doing so? Gradually, she wandered into the territory of her reflection. What had kept her shackled for so long? The expectation to present an unblemished surface, free of flaws? She cast a glance at her own work, the cracks openly visible. A nascent strength began to unfurl. The idea that these imperfections could resonate and spark connection filled her with resolve. Okay, she whispered to herself, her voice a fragile yet determined whisper. It's time to share. Amanda's hands moved as if guided by an unseen force. Additional elements began joining the hardest series of intertwining hands reaching out, symbolizing connection, support, and the leap to belong. Each stroke softened the walls she had cultivated, encouraging her to step into the light. When the moment came for participants to share their creations, Amanda fought through the remaining threads of doubt. One by one, they illustrated their hearts' murals, revealing fears and dreams often locked away by the pressures of their roles. Then came her turn, the weight of the moment settling like a leaden cloak around her shoulders. The room quieted as she stood before them, heart pounding, vulnerability cascading through her veins. I want to share my piece, she began, pacing her words with careful sincerity. This heart represents the journey of learning to embrace my imperfections. She gestured to the cracks. These are the blemishes and failures I have experienced, moments that once made me feel inadequate. But I've learned that they don't define me. Instead, they shape who I am becoming. In sharing them, I hope to connect with each of you as we navigate our journeys together. As her words poured forth, she sensed the air around her charged with empathy. Each nod from her peers, each supportive glance, propelled her deeper into the moment, a breathtaking revelation of collective strength. With each revelation they exchanged, Amanda found herself unraveling, frayed edges giving way to a fuller tapestry of connection. What seemed daunting and raw transformed into a beautiful resonance of acceptance and trust, igniting a palpable spark in the room. Yet, as the workshop drew near its end, Amanda grappled with a new layer of conflict. Had she really shed all her defenses? As she surveyed the faces around her, she felt emboldened yet anxious about what this new openness might invite into her life. In that charged silence, raw and emotional, Amanda questioned what awaited her beyond this moment. The leap she'd taken opened doors she hadn't known existed. What lay on the other side? Acknowledgement, growth, or perhaps confrontation with the shadows still lurking behind her scars. As she looked into each participant's eyes, there loomed an unspoken challenge. How would she maintain this newfound integrity in her professional life? The echo of a soft promise lingered in her mind, but the path ahead was now laden with deeper questions than before. And even amid the triumphant emergence, her heart whispered the truth: this was only the beginning. The horizon of her professional self was shifting, teetering on the edge of transformation and uncertainty. Little did she know, her journey was about to face a formidable adversary, something from her past she had carefully hidden, and it was about to resurface in ways she never expected. The following weeks were marked by a profound change, both in Amanda and in the sleek, corporate offices that had once felt like cold steel around her. The workshop sparked something unimaginable: the blending of humanity with the business model Tom had cultivated so meticulously. Both Amanda and Tom emerged as different players in the corporate game, and every meeting they held echoed the deeper meanings they had unearthed together. Amanda's confidence surged as her contributions grew increasingly recognized. No longer simply the maid behind the polish, she transformed into a linchpin in the corporate structure. Tom frequently entrusted her with responsibilities that extended beyond her previous duties, inviting her into strategy discussions that hadn't initially been within her reach. In these conversations, her voice was no longer tentative. It commanded respect. "Your insight into team dynamics is invaluable," Tom acknowledged during one meeting, a genuine spark of admiration in his usually steely gaze. Her heart swelled with recognition not just for her contributions, but for the powerful partnership they had forged. She had shown him the warmth of empathy. Now he showed her how to conquer the corporate landscape with that warmth at the core. Amanda's transformation went beyond the surface. No longer did she feel like an outsider struggling to find a foothold among the high-rises. She now knew she was an architect of connection, casting a bridge between human relationships and business dealings. Tom, in turn, began to lead with compassion. His corporate decisions often echoed the voices of the employees whose lives they impacted. The merger that once frightened Amanda transitioned from a looming threat to an opportunity for growth and collaboration. Yet, true evolution never comes without its challenges. The simmering anxiety lurking in the backdrop of their partnership was embodied in a looming corporate review. Amanda recalled her earlier setbacks, the weight of scrutiny, and the fear of judgment that once paralyzed her. At the review, their collaboration would be assessed, and doubts lingered: would their experimental merging of compassion and business yield success or failure? On the day of the review, Amanda dared to step into the conference room with steadier resolve. She felt the heartbeat of the corporation resonate within her. The once familiar anxiety entwined with anticipation. She had worked tirelessly to prepare, infusing the culture shift into every presentation detail. As they presented their evolving approach to corporate dynamics, a palpable shift occupied the room. Amanda confidently articulated how their strategies embraced vulnerability and authenticity, drawing on the success from the workshop. Each glowing nod and smile illuminated her path. When she locked eyes with Tom, she saw his belief in her reflected there. During these past few months, we've learned that integrating humanity into our business strategies doesn't compromise productivity. It enhances it, Amanda concluded with authority. Empathy isn't an abstract concept, it's a catalyst for change. The atmosphere began to hum with palpable energy, reinforcing her conviction. As external metrics were shared, results from team morale to productivity soared, resonating with their bold venture into uncharted territory. Acclamations of support flooded the room, transforming the once severe air into a celebratory chorus. Following their presentation, the approval came swiftly, accolades raining down upon them. Amanda felt the warm rush of satisfaction, a rightful affirmation of her contributions. She realized that this success wasn't merely a reflection of her resilience, but also a testament to the authentic partnerships she had cultivated. Tom stood beside her, glowing with pride. "We did it," he smiled, almost incredulous. "You spearheaded this transformation, Amanda. I wouldn't have been able to see it without you." "Together," she corrected gently. "Transformation comes from the blending of our strengths." With that, the final walls they each had built crumbled, leaving ample space for a future that sparked with potential. As she mentally tallied her achievements, an endearing sense of completion washed over her. She had not only elevated her professional stature, but deepened her self-identity and alignment of her personal evolution with professional aspirations. The fears that once engulfed her faded. She had transformed from a mere participant to a transformative force within the corporate world. In the weeks following the review, Amanda relished her new role not merely as a provider for herself and her family, but as a valued contributor to a dynamic that now celebrated both humanity and profitability. Each day, she embraced her journey, reflecting on the lessons birthed from vulnerability, the choices that defined her path. And just as she had once feared the chasm between her and Tom's world, their partnership flourished with an understanding that reached beyond the confines of corporate ambition. What had begun with broken bowls and bitter stew metamorphosed into an enriching increment of shared dreams and goals, granting them both a renewed sense of purpose and fulfillment. It was an exhilarating realization. Amanda had not only conquered the corporate climactic peaks of her own journey, but she had also fostered significant growth in the man beside her. Together, they anchored the bridge between ambitious pursuits and the underlying humanity it entailed. Built on trust and respect, their evolving relationship redefined how they chose to navigate the complexities ahead. This transformation propelled Amanda forward, paving the road for innovative projects that would resonate within their company and inspire an entire workforce to embrace the beautiful complexity of being authentically human in a stark business world. In doing so, Amanda confidently achieved her ultimate personal and professional resolution. She had found her place, and it was a fulfilling, worthy space of recognition and esteem. And as she stepped forward into the next chapter of her journey, rich with promise, she knew this transformation was not just the end of one story, but the beginning of something magnificent. If you've made it this far, your journey of transformation is just beginning too. Subscribe immediately to our channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that will inspire you to embrace your own struggles. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep powerful narratives alive. Comment below your reactions and theories about the ending. Join the conversation. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Together, let us redefine success through personal overcoming stories.